Chief asks, I have a bit of a broad question actually, which you probably get a lot.
Mhm.
But what is one or two things that most people miss that will help a designer break through and get the attention of a publisher?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, it's I'm always happy to kind of answer that in any sort of way because I think it's really important. Like I know that we don't have any submission details on our website, so there are no kind of guidelines for how to pitch us essentially. But we do still get a lot of people kind of emailing in and pitching us. So I suppose I'll maybe kind of frame it in terms of things that people do that I find really annoying and kind of put people on my blacklist. I don't have a blacklist per se, but like the things that people um, that would make me think less of somebody as a designer and not want to work with them. So I suppose the first one is having no experience of what they're pitching us. So we often get people pitching their own game, which is nothing to do with Gumshoe. It's nothing to do with 13th Age. It's not even really a kind of small standalone story game. So those are kind of the three different types of things that we publish. So if you're pitching a game that doesn't necessarily fit into any of those three categories, we're probably not going to take it on. Similarly, if you're pitching us, but you have no, I suppose the Pelgrane community is it's getting quite extensive, but I still know a lot of people involved in it. So I would expect to know the names of people who are pitching us as designers, right? I'd expect them to have, written adventures and maybe submitted them, to have run games for us, to have been active on social media talking about our games, to have maybe submitted resources to our website so that other people can download them. I'm looking for people who are genuinely interested. Like if you're pitching a Gumshoe game, I'm looking for somebody who's genuinely interested in Gumshoe and has experience with Gumshoe, not somebody who's kind of going, oh yeah, well, I don't play 13th Age, I don't play Gumshoe, but you should publish my game anyway. It's like, no, that's not how it works. So I would say knowledge of the publisher and what they publish is kind of the most key thing that designers get wrong. Like because I think designers, especially if you go to something like Gen Con, people will just walk up to you and give you their card and be like, publish my game, or I want to write for you. And my first question, like I said, is always, 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 which of our games are you experienced with? What have you run? What have you played? What have you run? What have you written things for? And the answer is overwhelmingly none of them, right? And I'm like, I'm just not. Look, we have an amazing community here, right? If I'm going to recruit writers, it's going to be from within this community who are, you know, active and passionate about our games, not somebody who just wants to be published and doesn't really care who's doing it. So yeah, like knowing the publisher, knowing what they do. There's also like a kind of a value alignment as well. Like if your game is about how cool Nazis are, we're not going to publish it ever, even if it's the best Gumshoe game in the world. Like that's not what we do.
Yeah.
So, doing a basic research about the company, about what kind of games they published before, what kind of games they're working on currently. Again, like if you were to come to us, we just mentioned Paragon Blade. If you were to come to us and say, "Oh, I've got a Gumshoe one-to-one game which is fantasy, and it has these three different fantasy protagonists: your barbarian, your rogue, and your sorcerer," we'd be like, "Well, we're doing that already." So you know, so do your research is the first thing. But we're like a big part of the reason why we've brought Robin in as a creative director is that we're really keen to develop people as writers, particularly with regard to Gumshoe. Rob is Rob is the 13th Age man, so he manages everything 13th Age. So we deal a lot more with Gumshoe and the other lines. Um, and we're always like actively looking for writers, and we want to develop writers, but they have to, like I said, know what we do, have pitches that align with that, and also be willing to accept feedback, right? Like Robin has worked with a lot of developing writers and designers, and one of the things, like we have guidelines, we have rules. People will submit things to him, and Robin will like critique it essentially, and go back to them with thoughts and comments and changes. And we have had some writers who just have kind of refused to implement those. And look, it's a discussion. Of course, it is a dialogue between Robin as the creative director and the developer, and the writer as the writer and designer. But if you're just starting off, if somebody like Robin has a lot of experience with Gumshoe, he wrote the system, right? So you have to be willing to accept that it's a creative process, but it's also a process that you need to learn, that other people have skill sets that you don't necessarily have. And so you have to work with people. A book requires a big team. So you have to be flexible and you have to be able to work with a group of other people, yeah, to achieve this one goal. So those aren't really specifically focused on design at all. But I suppose the point is that often publishers are the gatekeepers into design. So even though, say, for example, I'm not a myself, I would be the person who would decide whether your pitch would be accepted or not and then passed on for development. The kind of the admin things like those are actually almost, I won't say they're more important than having a great design, but like if you have a great design but your admin stuff is bad, then it's just not going to get seen. You're not even going to get to that stage where you can evaluate your design. Yeah. Also, like I got a really good pitch in from somebody a couple of days ago, and it was just a really well written pitch. So this is more of the pitching than the design side. But so what this person did was they kind of said, "Here's my name. Here's and I'm approaching you because I have this pitch for this Gumshoe game. Here are links to some of the things I've done in the past. These are kind of my initial high level thoughts for what this Gumshoe game could be, and here's how you can contact me." And then being very responsive if you do get an email back from the publisher, kind of saying, "Oh, tell me more, tell them more," right? Like these are basics, but a lot of people in our industry, myself included, I almost certainly owe most of you an email. Very conscious of that. But being responsive and being there and just being able to work as, like I said, as part of a team, is all of these things are the things that I think designers kind of don't realize are a big part of the package.
Yeah, great
There's a
answer.
lot of
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a great question as
mm,
well. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Kat.
yeah,
Pierce asks,
no,
would it be possible at some point, with the designer's permission to share an example of a great pitch?
yeah. I pretty much just run through it. And actually, now that I'm talking about that pitch, it was maybe a little bit long, but it was thorough. And I think it's better to be long and thorough and accurate and useful than super short and not have the information in it that people need. So yeah, but that's we have. I don't know if you can download it from our website, but again, Becky is the queen of being able to provide everyone everything. So if you want to email support, we have what we call a kind of a Gumshoe pitching document, which kind of goes through each of the Gumshoe games and gives a kind of an outline of what we're looking for. So like we will primarily be looking for Gumshoe adventures. That's something that we're always looking for. So each of the adventures in the Gumshoe system has a different structure. So, like for example, with Trail of Cthulhu, you've got the hook, which is the initial kind of thing that gets the investigators involved. Then you've got the spine, which is your kind of list of clues that they follow through, and then you've got the horrible truth. Horrible truth. You've got a truth that is really bad, and I think the word we use for that is horrible. But that's the what's actually going on that the players find out once they've successfully solved the mystery. So looking at this for if you are pitching, say, a Gumshoe adventure, looking at the core book will have literally a template for how an adventure should be structured. Again, in Fear Itself Second Edition, Gareth has done a really fantastic kind of a breakdown of how you take, how you use a particular concept, create an adventure, and that's specific to Fear Itself. But the general techniques hold for pretty much all Gumshoe games because it's Gumshoe. So looking at those adventure templates or adventure structures and following those is a really good way of giving us the information we need to see whether that's something that we'd be interested in. And then as well, like looking at things like settings, like we're working with somebody, which is one of the things probably I'm not supposed to talk about because it's not announced, but we spotted that we don't have a cyberpunk Gumshoe game. And we were like, oh, we should do something about that. And then somebody said to us, can I do a cyberpunk game? And we were like, cool, yeah. So like, look at, I mean, you're, as gamers, you know what gamers are interested in, you know, the kind of genres um, that that we enjoy. I would maintain that we don't have enough sci-fi at all. So like interesting sci-fi pitches, I think would be all. But again, it's knowing, it's about doing your research and knowing what it is the publisher is doing, what they have done, and where their gaps are, right? Like it might be that like again, a key thing that we didn't really have was a classic high fantasy Gumshoe game, and we're talking about Gareth has half of one written, but then he started working on Paragon Blade, which is also like it's one-to-one fantasy. And then we had Swords of the Serpentine, which is kind of swords of sorcery fantasy. So there are gaps, right? There are gaps in the line, and kind of look at those, and those are the kind of things that we're more likely to be interested in than if you say, "Oh, I've got this idea for Cthulhu Gumshoe." I'm probably going to roll my eyes. And I will roll my eyes doubly hard if there are cards in it. But yeah, um,
we,
we
we
do
all know
we do
we
actually
all
have
know your dislike about cards, so
good, good. I'm not blaming you, Abraham, because it's not your fault. But why do the writers keep putting cards in their things then? Definitely something. Internal documents that we have are examples of previous pitches that we can share. So I think we have, off the top of my head, we have the pitches for Ashen Stars, and we have the pitch for, I think we have the pitch for Bookhounds, which is interesting because that changed quite a bit. I think we have the pitch for Knights Black Agents. So these are all kind of original pitches from, yeah, that changed a little bit along the way, but also stayed pretty close to their core plan.
also you accidentally revealed something we are working on, and I
I
hope
know.
people
Yeah.
caught it.
And don't ask questions about it because they're not
Yeah.
allowed,
Okay.
as previously established.
Lyroster asks, what are some new challenges you're facing now as an indie publisher that you did not face, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
One of the things that I suppose is a challenge to us as like a 25-year-old company um, is something that, even though it's a challenge to us, I think is a fantastic thing. And that is that the barrier to entry into RPGs and into publishing an RPG is so much lower than it used to be, right? So like when I was kind of getting started in RPGs, and when Pelgrane was getting started in RPGs, you needed a lot of money to publish your first RPG, right? Because you had to print a book, right? So you had to pay money upfront for a print run that you didn't know if you were going to sell, and if it was anything other than a hardback 8.5 by 11 book, you're going nowhere. Um, and the internet has platforms like Drive Through RPG, like Lightning Source for print on demand, um, and even platforms like Itch as well. Like all of these things have combined to make it easier than ever for people to publish their own RPG, and that has that has meant that RPGs have exploded. Right? I mean, it used to be that you could kind of keep up with what was all out there, but you can't anymore. Like there are dozens of new games being published every day that I might never hear of. That that poses a really big challenge, companies like, but particularly kind of indie companies, as to how you can distinguish yourself in that marketplace, right? Like when there are so very very many um, games available and more new games coming on the, how can you make your game stand out? How can you make people listen to the fact that you have a new game? How can you get your game in front of people? That's a really big challenge. And like I said, I overwhelmingly think it's a good thing for the industry at large. but it is a challenge for anyone publishing, but especially an indie publisher. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's there are very few kind of curation places. I suppose like there's a massive volume of games, and you kind of have to do your own curation quite often. Like as a consumer, maybe you follow a reviewer or something like that, but um, or you have a particular podcast that you listen to or an actual play that you like, and so you can find games that way. But it's very difficult to find games now. Um, or rather, it's very easy. It's so easy to find games that it's hard to be found.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, so that is definitely a challenge. I think another big challenge for us is is kind of it's a more of an existential challenge, and that is kind of the high street, the decline of the high street, right? So again, when we started off, game stores were our lifeblood, right? That was kind of where we sold most of our books. We were able to do considerably bigger print runs because we could sell a certain amount into hobby games. But again, with things like the internet, with Amazon, places like that, it's really hard to compete with that. Like Amazon can just sell your book for half the price of what you're selling it for, and it's like the economics don't make sense to me. I know how and why they can, and you have these like online discounters and stuff as well. um, and they're making it very difficult for game stores who have traditionally always sold books at the manufacturer's recommended selling price. um, they're making it very difficult for game stores to survive, and again, that's traditionally been a really big and significant place where people have found games or been introduced to games or been convinced to try something other than D&D. Um, so yeah, like the I would overall call it the death of the high street, but the switch from bricks and mortar stores to online shopping and the rise then of online discounters have who often have no respect for manufacturers' retail price and will undercut you. Um, Meaning that they can then put you out of business, even though that means they'll then have nothing to sell. Like, it's when you undercut a publisher, it's not the same as undercutting other retailers, right? You're literally cutting off the supply. So, like I said, don't really have a big economics mind, but that just makes no sense to me. But it is another challenge. So
Do you feel that European TTRPG market community differs from the US?
I mean, I'd have to hedge and say it does and it doesn't, right? Um, so on the one hand, like gamers are really kind of universal. Like it's always fascinating me that wherever I go, if I meet a gamer, I know I'll have all of the same kind of cultural touch points with them. Like I know I can talk about a particular TV show and they'll like it, or it's it transcends language being a gamer. So in that respect, we are all kind of the same. Um, but then there are really big cultural differences. I think that are reflected in broader society. So there are big differences between people in the US and Canada, and people in Europe, right? So, like off the top of my head, militarization is a really big thing. Um, the military are I suppose venerated or celebrated. In the US in particular, I can't speak as much to Canada, but so much more so than they are in Europe. Um, and I don't know if that's because we had an unfortunate incident in our history where we, you know we have bad memories of venerating militaries, and kind of celebrating armies. So it might be something to do with that. But there's also the element of religion. So I think European societies tend to be a lot more secular than certainly I found the US to be. Um, and so I mentioned those things because those things come through in game design, um, and to a lesser extent in gaming community, but more so in the kind of books that, um, like I have a recurring argument with Robin where I am determined to publish games that don't have combat in them, and he's determined that that is a terrible idea. Um, and it's really interesting to me because I suppose as a person, I don't solve any of my issues with combat. Um, and I know that a lot of the I suppose the properties that we emulate in our RPGs do solve issues with combat. You know, we are modeled on spy films or horror films. Um, but again, I feel like there is that kind of glorification. Glorification is maybe a strong word. Foregrounding of the physical response. I think is a kind of a cultural difference. Um, Yeah, and there is actually, you know, talking about Europe as well. Like I think there's a difference again culturally between um, what Ken refers to as Westeros, which is Ireland and the UK, and Central Europe. So you know, kind of France, Germany, and the Nordic countries. You know, these all have their own, and then Eastern Europe as well, kind of Poland. Like these all have their own kind of native RPGs, and we were talking about that on a panel recently, where a lot of these countries will have different priorities in role playing depending on what game was the first game released. So, like the most famous example is in Germany, like Das Schwarze Auge was the first RPG. So that's more popular than D&D there. Whereas you know D&D was obviously the US's first game. So there's a kind of a difference in that different European communities have a preference for different RPGs depending on what was translated into language first. I'm so going to get into trouble for that answer, haven't I? It's like the two things you don't talk about are like religion. Oh, I didn't talk about politics.
For us, like our games, I see little difference, but for other games, I see a lot of difference in audience. Our
Yeah.
audience overseas like are close enough to each other that they are very similar, but I don't see the
Mhm.
same for say even D&D. Yeah, that's actually a benefit to us. What is your opinion on jams, i.e., a game development event, time limited, themed, focused on an RPG element, collaborative, team or solo, then shared at the end? And would you consider one for Pelgrane?
Yeah. I think jams are fantastic. And, you know, like I was saying earlier, they've been a really big contributor to how active game designers are on itch. You know, it's been that kind of having a creative challenge is a really, you know, it's a really strong incentive to actually publish something or to get something written up. So I'm very very pro game jams. The only one we've done, and this might have been a bit before your time, Jim. But we did one which was called the One Sheet Gumshoe Challenge. So it was basically people had to design a gumshoe game in one sheet, and we got some really really strong responses in from that. I'm pretty sure that they're available to download on our website. But I would love to do something like that again. Actually, I think that would be great. Um, like team events would be interesting. I don't know the extent to which. So I'm part of a kind of a freeform LARP community in the UK. Um, and we kind of mostly run, or they mostly run chamber LARPs. But one of the events that they have is called, or that they run is called Peaky. And basically, about 30 odd people get together for kind of a weekend, and they hire out you know, like holiday homes or whatever. And then on the Friday evening, they basically people pitch ideas and groups form around what people are interested in. Like they try to have one very experienced, at least one very experienced writer in each group to kind of lead it. But the idea is that you'll basically write a free form in a weekend. So you kind of get together in groups on Friday and you kind of work on you know, the outline of your game or whatever. They spend all, and then on Sunday, all of the different groups play test each other's game. So it's a really, you know, short but focused way of writing new games, and I've often thought about translating it into RPGs, but I suppose like with these freeforms, you're looking at kind of a dozen plus characters. So there's maybe more writing, maybe more shareable writing than there would be with an RPG in terms of teams. But solo competitions are like very easily done. And I think that's a great idea, Ibrahim. I'm gonna throw that one to you because yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
I
Like
was
and
I was
what was
about
it,
to
the
say
gumshoe?
that ball will curve towards me. So
Yes, that's
okay,
me.
I'm
That's me
I'm taking a note,
curving the ball towards you.
like design
Yeah,
competition.
cool. Yeah. No, I love that. I think it's a great idea. I'd love to hear like suggestions. Like I said, I really liked the Gumshoe one sheet because it let people, like Gumshoe games are quite long, but this let people like just kind of develop a Gumshoe concept, which was really fun.
Yeah,
So
also,
we could definitely do that again.
yeah, we can do that, and maybe I should talk with Robin about that Gumshoe Labs line, and
Mhm.
we can
Yeah.
do something like a collection of that competition's
Mhm.
results, and they could be some first steps of a writer's career in our community, maybe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you
You
very
know,
much, Jim.
yeah.
Pierce asks, what's a particularly interesting to you in the RPG design space right now? Are there any particular types of mechanics or stories which you are looking at and going, oh, I haven't seen that before. I want to know more about that.
I suppose something that has been kind of very pertinent to me over the last couple of years has been solo games. Like I am really excited about them as a concept. Um, because I live by myself. So, having the option to play a role playing game without having to get together a group, because I share the experience of lots of people. And if that's the Pete I'm thinking of, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this. But yeah, I share the experience of not being able to get a group together and not being able to game as often as I want to. So games that you can actually play by yourself, I think I'm really really excited about. Um, and yeah, I don't know if we've. I think we have already said that Robin is noodling on properly solo rules for Gumshoe as opposed to the one-to-one rules. So I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. But yeah, so solo games are something I'm really, really interested in. A lot of them have kind of gone down the route of journaling or else choose your own adventure. Um, so we're kind of looking at, we'd like to try and do something that's kind of somewhere in the middle of that. And that is really exciting to me because I feel like, the first solo games were really, really innovative. But then people have kind of settled into categories. So design in that kind of vein, um, maybe with replayability. Um, Somehow, again, if you can kind of get the randomness in right or play with a different character, I'm really interested in that as a design concept. Um, and I've always been really interested in. Somebody once described it as my great white whale, and I think it's true. But like games that are not just genre focused, I think I just think there's a massive opportunity there that we're not fully realizing as an industry. We've kind of started doing Regency games, which I think, I mean, I, I'm biased because I love the Regency period. Um, but Regency games, are a big thing. Looking at kind of, other TV shows that aren't genre specific, I think there's a lot of yeah, myself and Simon were recently talking about how to do a Gumshoe Regency game, and we came up with a pitch for it. But I'm like 1,000% not even. I haven't even told like the rest of the Pelgranistas that, so I definitely can't talk about that. But yeah, like more kind of different kind of historical variations I'm interested in. Um, Flag bearer games. their Civil War game. I like that as a concept because again, it's kind of looking at the. I think it's 5e compatible, so it's using that rule system, but it's looking at a historical event from a different perspective, which I think is really cool. Um, and then kind of yeah, mechanics wise, I'm not a fan of betrayal mechanics. So anything that like there's a whole run of games like the Battlestar Galactica, they're mostly board games that have these kind of betrayal mechanics. But I came across a game 2 weekends ago which has collaboration mechanics. Um, so that's actually, it's kind of like the Gumshoe piggybacking, but taken a step further. So it's like when you help somebody, like when you help another character in the game, you both get a bonus and you can significantly contribute to the overall success of the group. Um, which I thought was a really nice mechanic because it's in a cozy game. So the idea is that it's again foregrounding the support and the collaboration and the teamwork as opposed to a kind of an antagonistic game, whatever. So yeah, I really like mechanics that kind of enable the driving concept or the what you're supposed to do in the game of a game, which I thought that was a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you are interested in either solo games or extremely collaborative ones?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Like,
definitely solo games. So
yeah,
I'm
pushing the
really
boundary in
interested in
either way, instead of doing
yeah,
things over and over again.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to write down that I need to find somebody to write a Gumshoe game
Thank you
because
very
that would be
much.
awesome. But yeah, yeah. So solo games, there's so much design space available in that. I think because you can play test it really easily, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So Toonspew asks, I read sometimes about RPG tournaments with player versus player competitive elements having once been a thing, but it seems to have faded away in more recent decades.
Mm.
Could you see any room for competitive elements within a gumshoe game where the story would end with someone being crowned winner with the context within the context of the setting?
So yeah, when I was in college, we used to have at our home convention we would run kind of student like a national student competition. So each of the different universities would submit a team, and then they were graded. We used the old RPGA scoring system. I don't know if you've come across that, but so we used that to grade everyone at the table, um, and then we would have multiple tables of the same scenario running, and so whoever got the highest points kind of across all of that would win the game, and then they'd get a trophy or whatever to bring back to their home university. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I like obviously if you look at something like Knights Black Agents, that actually has a specific mode for player versus player play. Try saying that 5 times fast. Um, so we do have games that are kind of mechanically tooled up for that, but competitive play is, I don't know, I suppose I find it really subjective, I suppose. Like it's like a good player in one player's eyes is not necessarily a good player in another player's eyes. It really depends on what you as a player kind of prioritize. So I don't know. I mean, I know you could come up with a kind of a framework for it, like, did that player support the rest of the group or um, but in terms of like designing games for that, I think, like I said, the is it the stakes mode of Knights Black Agents does that, um, but that's because that game, the feel of that game and the genre of that game is very much the kind of paranoid, you don't know who you can trust kind of feeling. So that's enhanced and heightened by having mechanics that allow you to play against the other players. So I think I mean, it is if you have the right kind of like I don't know, if we did like a Hunger Games game, or one of those kind of battle royale type fight to the death games, like obviously you could definitely have one winner in that kind of situation. But I think with Gumshoe games, like for me, they're all about collaboration. Like they are about you as a group, you as a team working together, with the GM to kind of solve the mystery. So yeah, I don't know. It might just be a personal preference. Yeah, but um yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
also
answer
also
for
there
those two.
are, I guess, balance issues between players, and
Mhm.
maybe even like people getting upset at the thought of like competing or battling other players. And we
Mhm.
know how
Yeah.
trying to balance everything in D&D didn't work. So I think it would be harder for less combat oriented games. And yeah, I haven't heard of the RPGA scoring system. Can you give a quick summary?
So they used to no, and I am not an expert on this. This is back when I was just a teeny tiny baby gamer. But what they used to do, as I understand it, was that the RBGA would publish, kind of like organized play style adventures. Um, and then they would include with those kind of, again, scoring sheets that basically capture the name of the GM, the name of the player, and ask them to rank the other players on a scale of, I want to say like 1 to 6 or something. Um, I think that they were supposed to be used as part of like the RPGA. The RPGA was oh no, I'm gonna get myself into real trouble. It was like I see Rob's there and he might be able to explain it better. But it was uh like I suppose it was like kind of D&D Beyond before there was a D&D Beyond and before there was an internet. Like in that it was kind of a collaboration of people that all played D&D. Um, and so they publish a lot of adventures for D&D and publish material. And they supported GMs for D&D and they organize these kind of competitions. And yeah, it's really not my kind of specialist subject. Like I said, I only remember it from where we kind of stole their sheets and applied them to our own game because, college. Um, but yeah, they were really big. Did they run Gen Con? Like, I think if they didn't run Gen Con UK back when that was a thing, they were very involved in the organization of that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know the extent to which they interacted with the various owners of D&D in a kind of a professional way. Yeah, actually, Yuka would have probably been a good person to ask about the RPGA thing.
Which of
Oh,
the
which
universe?
university? It was Yeah, it was Galway. It was always Galway. They had fantastic role players. They really did. And to be fair, a lot of the Cork people were only there for the drinking and the role playing, but all drinking. Yeah. No, the Galwegians were they were just they were really really inventive and really really creative and really really good character actors. So every year at like the closing ceremony or whatever, it would always be like, and the winner of this game is one of these people from Galway, and you'd be like, yeah, well, shock. Um, and I'm not going to say that there was a kind of a collaboration against Dublin, but we tended not to in Dublin.
KGM asks, I find one-shot adventures with pre-gen characters ideal to win over interested people to try a new game system. D&D 2 13th Age, Call of
Mhm,
Cthulhu to Trail of Cthulhu. Any plans to keep
mhm,
this up for free RPG day or even just one per game you publish in the future?
mhm. Yeah, I love those as well. I really really love those. Um, like they're like you said, they're just a fantastic introduction. So like I particularly like the ones that we did for the Dracula dossier. Like they give a really easy way for GMs to onboard players into what can be a very challenging giant sandbox adventure. Um, so I really love them. The economics of free RPG Day have not been kind to us. Um, we increasingly find that we're we're being asked to kind of spend more and more money on. So like the whole thing with free RPG days, basically you have to provide like a minimum of 3,000, but ideally 7,000 copies of, the book, the kind of introductory adventure, whatever, to game stores. And you kind of pay for it all and you print it and then you ship it off to the free RPG day people. Um, and the idea is that the stores that are participating would then buy in some of whatever game it is that your adventure is for into the store, so that when people came in, they could get the free adventure and they could, and buy the core book if they were interested in it. But we've had a lot of complaints, I suppose, from people who are saying that the stores aren't giving the books away for free anymore, that they're kind of making them available with purchase, which it's fair enough. I mean, the store has to get something back from it, but some of them are even charging for it. Like if you go online, you can some of our day books for sale for money on other websites, which I think is really cheeky. But yeah, so it just wasn't financially viable to do that. But it's definitely like more introductory onboarding adventures and opportunities are something that we're absolutely focused on at the moment. So we're Rob is working on an introductory box set adventure for 13th Age, and we're going to do something similar for Trail of Cthulhu. So even if we're not participating in Free RPG Day, we definitely want to continue that kind of trend of providing like really slimmed down rules and a kind of an easy to play adventure. So I hope that kind of having those kind of resources available either in boxes or as PDFs would be useful.
I'm trying to get Rob over here to talk about the boxed set,
Yeah.
but
Hey, yeah.
so
Wait,
Rob,
am I the machine in this scenario?
Excuse me. Are you? Oh no, you're not the machine. Yeah, yeah. You're the agent of the machine.
Rob, please tell us about the new boxed set,
We should probably call it a starter set.
starter set. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, just because that's really what it definitely is. It's going to contain rules and an adventure. Um, I originally thought that it was more aimed at new tables that had never played 13th Age before, but probably somebody had played an RPG before. But my collaborator Wade is definitely, and I saw the original Pelgrane instructions are definitely that. Hey, we should help people out who've never played anything a little bit. I mean, I'm not going to have a section in there called "What is role playing," but we are going to guide people through character creation in a way that will feed right into the adventure. And so, person running it needs to read the rules. Probably nobody else needs to read the rules. Then we'll have pre-gen characters using our nifty new character sheets. And I decided to go ahead and try something interesting. Because we're aiming this at people who are new to the game, I felt great about taking the adventure from the back of the core book in the first edition, and liberating it and rewriting it. So it's presently twice as big as it was. It was like, I don't know. Yeah, I know. Hey, Cat, big is, it's not too big. It's still within your parameters. But I just use words like big, and then I can make Cat. Ah, yeah. Anyway, so it's gonna fit in a box, Cat. Definitely. So it's called Bolt Strike Pillar now. And I'm actually getting it back. I finished my draft, and Wade has been making fun suggestions, and I'm getting those later this afternoon. Miguel finished with all the character sheets. So that means that we'll be putting together the pre-gens for it, which are basically going to be the simplest possible characters. And that means I'm probably just leaving the bard out. Ha! I figure I could figure we can tell people, hey, you got 8 characters here to choose from. Oh, you want a bard? Oh, that's for extra special people who buy the books. So I'm doing tiny little things with the pre-gen characters, like giving them 1 power too many. and telling people from the start, hey, when you start off as a first level character, you got to subtract one of these powers. But when you get an incremental advance, you could take it if you wanted to. And so there'll be fun little ways of introducing people to 13th age concepts, but not making them have to like create the entire character themselves. For those who have played Bolt Strike Pillar, there will be some surprises. They played the first one. There'll be some surprises and lots of more iconic interactions. But I suspect that there's actually advice for that in the adventure. It says maybe you should have your one unique thing be that you sometimes have incorrect visions of the future, or maybe they're even correct. Yeah, I know. If people have to role play ignorance, so but it is principally designed at new players, and we're calling it the starter set because we have a slipcase already that has two big books. So calling it a starter set, really emphasizing the box, is probably better.
Has Miguel done the form fillable?
Well, he's working on it, but I will. He can't work today or yesterday. He should be back at work this weekend, I predict. I hope. So yeah, he's working on them. And once we have the form fillable sheets, your intention is to make them available pretty much for everybody, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It'll go up on the website, on the resources page. Yeah.
Right. One of the cool things will be on the website. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right. Well, I have now spoken on Cats Ask Me Anything.
I know. Next time I'm going to speak on your Ask Me Anything.
Yeah.
She refused to join yours. Yeah.
Was that a refusal or was it a technological glitch?
Oh, it was a refusal. Yeah. I think I was in my pajamas or like something like that. And I was like, I'm not gonna slob in my pajamas on yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I will fade back to black here.
Thank you very much.
You don't have to. You're a rock star. People are probably much more excited to hear you say them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sure. Yeah. Rock on, baby. Thank you.
Yeah. Next question is from Pierce. I adore the Dracula Unredacted supplement for the Dracula dossier. Reading it from cover to cover and referencing it regularly in play, but that must have been an absolute monster on all levels to make. I assume a lot of cost. Too much to ever do something like that again.
That wasn't so bad. The big issue with that one was the layout. So I know that Sarah Root had it was very painful trying to get the SB. It was very painful for her to try and get the layout right. And to fit it all in and fit in the annotation. We had to make the text really tiny as well, which a lot of people found a strain. So yeah, the whole Dracula dossier, if you know, if you were there, yeah, you probably remember what a pain it was. But we're really, really proud of what we did. Like the Unredacted is an amazing book. So many people who aren't even gamers buy that from us just to read it. And it's it's a real challenge to try and work out the bits that we introduced versus the bits that are actually Dracula. So yeah, we're always on the lookout for cool things like that we can do. And with the Eternal Lies box set, I'm even kind of forgetting how much of a pain doing the Hawkins paper was. And I'm kind of thinking, well, with that, we could do handouts. We could do lots of handouts, and they would be very cool handouts. So, yeah. So definitely, if you mean in terms of like a literary work, like that, we don't have anything going on at the moment that would work for that. But it's not something that we'd rule out. It worked really well, because Ken and Gareth knew Dracula so very, very well towards the end. They were just kind of able to incorporate things into it, So, yeah, it's not something that we rule out, even if we arguably should.
So next question is from Toonspew. A question to Kat, Rob, and anyone else working for Pelgrane. How often have you guys gotten together to play a game together? Do any of you have a reputations as a particular type of GM or player stereotype?
To kind of answer the first part, we haven't even met Abraham. We were myself and Simon were kind of talking about that um, over the weekend, and like we've never even met him, much less gamed with him. But we try we as a group get together twice a year at Gen Con and at Dragon Meet in London. Um, and we try on the Thursday night of Gen Con to play a game together, and we try on the Friday night of Dragon Meet, the Friday night before Dragon Meet, to play a game together. Um, so we have, say, like myself, well, myself and Gareth are we were in college together, so we've played together quite a lot. And then I was in Simon's gaming group, and I lived in London, so I've gamed with him a lot. Um, and then yeah, Ken and Robin, we played with, and Rob as well. We've played with kind of once or twice a year for a couple of years. Um, yeah, I mean, Robin is really difficult as a player. I haven't run a game for him, and I would be really scared to, um, because he's just like, I don't know. I won't say he's disruptive, but he's creative. He's really creative. He's like a kid in class who's just too smart for the class, and so he kind of channels that into, I don't know, pecking around. Like, and also, playing a brilliant character usually, but often one of those characters who's like, let me just release all the party's horses because that seems interesting. Um, yeah, Ken is very much a kind of a, yeah.
Sorry,
He's a big kind of an emulator. Like he plays his character quite a lot.
can
Um,
you get Rob on stage, please?
oh yeah, sorry, yeah. Um, and Gar is a great GM. Gar is one of the few people I think who can wrangle us all as a gaming group. Um, I was going to say something about, oh yeah, and then Simon and me as well. We're both kind of, we tend to be kind of teachers' pets. So if like the GM is like, here is a clue, we're like, I follow the clue. Whereas, some of the others are more like, I do this other thing over here, just for shiggles kind of thing. Yeah, so myself and Simon are we like to think that we're GM's helpers, in that we will follow the plot, we will do what the GM to do, um, but we also love the banter, we love the back and forth chat as well. At the time, I think we all do. I think that's the main thing that I've seen that we all have in common as a gaming group, is that we all love the kind of in character chat, right? Um, we all do that, so it makes us very difficult to run games for. Um, I think.
Kat, I think
Rob,
you
would
nailed it.
you?
I think you
Yeah.
nailed it. And the thing is that the one thing that I would have, your first answer would have been mine too. Robin is the guy who, if you're playing Delta Green, is going to find a way that it makes perfect sense for him to frag his commanding officer. I mean, he, yes,
Yeah.
it's like all that like Jack Vance dying Earth stuff became real, and Kugel the Clever is your chaotic gang
Yeah.
member, right? It's like, oh
Yes.
God,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Meanwhile, Ken is competent. Ken is
Yes.
always competent. Simon with the group is very earnest. He's going to be the fall guy if it's required, but only if it's required.
So yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're right about
1,000%.
Gar. Yeah, Gar's amazing when he game masters for the group. Yep.
He's one of the few people that can. He has a really fantastic way of bringing you back on track without it feeling like he's ordering you to do it. Like, um,
You might even like compare it to an author managing to handle multiple plot lines and weave them together.
yeah, you might. It's
Yeah,
true.
strange.
But yeah, I hadn't thought about Simon being earnest. Yeah, I also tend towards earnestness. I'm just earnest in real life. You know. But Simon, bless him, because when we get together, Simon is very often the you said the fall guy, which I
The
think
target.
is probably target. I think would be a
Target.
better word. Yeah. So he is very, very good natured about being mocked. So we all tend to mock. And that comes through in games as well. So like if somebody has to play Fredo the idiot, it'll be Simon who ends up playing that character. Like he's
Yeah.
I look forward to playing with you if I get the visa.
oh, I'm so we're crossing all our things for you, Brem.
Yeah,
Yes,
in
we really
10
want you
days
there.
I will get an answer. So, next
Yeah.
question from Nooch. Is there any news on the rumored Eternal Lies boxed set?
Do you want to handle that one, Ibrahim? Because
Sorry?
I said, do you want to answer that?
The
Because
campaign
you know
is
more
being
about
yeah, the campaign is being prepared and we are thinking of like October
handouts.
October 14th or 16th for the campaign, and it will have a lot of handouts.
Just our opportunity, I think, to like because it's a big spanning campaign, it's our opportunity to really kind of go to town on cool things for players to have at the
Yeah,
table. So like one of the things we're thinking about is like a passport and either like stickers or stamps or something like that. That like so like the player's character sheet would be like a kind of a passport, and they could get collect things that they could get as they go through each of the places. Um, Maps again, like I said, I love maps. So maps, handouts, more NPC illustrations and things like that. Um, and a big thing that I was about to say. Oh, so yes, because obviously quite a lot of people have played it. We did an alternate ending for the Odd Soft's actual play of it. So we're going to include that, and we're also hoping to write a second alternate ending, so that effectively there'll be three different endings to the campaign. So that even if you have played it before, we would like to include a kind of a bolt on so that you can replay it with your players,
yeah.
and it will feel kind of different.
Will it be new layout of the trail line?
Yeah, yeah,
The
it will
one
be.
you
It'll
revealed
use
on
the new layout.
Pelgrane?
Yeah,
So
yes, it will.
yeah, we will have passport shaped character sheets and
Hmm.
yeah, stamps or stickers for the locations you will visit. And you can also
Hmm.
like jam in your handouts inside those passports, like you are
Hmm.
taking notes and having them together. That would be neat.
Hmm.
So a lot of maps and whatnot. We are planning a lot of things, but some things will have to
Hmm.
be seen on pre-launch or during campaign.
To people like Lisa Paddle, who have run it repeatedly, and I think she's played in it as well. But kind of speaking to GMs about their experiences of running it, so that we can potentially offer advice to new GMs on what to do with it. If there are parts of it that multiple groups have found particularly sticky over the years, we might end up filing those off a bit. We have the opportunity to fix up anything that 10 years of playtesting has said isn't working. So
Yeah,
yeah, it may end up being slightly different textually from it won't just be a straight reprint in a box. It'll probably
yeah.
be a slightly different.
Thank you very much. Noah Basic asks, I've heard there's going to be a paid module for 13th Age Second Edition on Foundry to incorporate all the rules fluff from the core books. If that's true, is that intended to be ready for the retail release or is it a bit more down the line? So that question is for me, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
It is almost
Yeah.
ready. I think they
Hmm.
were asking for a few illustrations from me. Uh,
Hmm.
and I will have to dig out if we have illustrations for those or not. Otherwise, I think they are ready, and I will be I will be trying to finish uh, managing it and getting the developers ready to the launch. It is in my tasks. Yeah. So yeah, we are planning on reaching the launch.
Probably
So
won't be ready for the retail release, I would think, because the retail release is scheduled for the 1st of November.
yeah,
So it might be a bit after that, but hopefully
yeah,
it won't be too much after.
yeah. It won't be too much after that.
Mhm.
And if
Yeah.
you are a backer, you will have access to a gamma version of it. Like Juka asks, were you to start an organized play program in the style of Adventurers League or something like that for one of Pelgrane's game lines, which one would it be?
I think I would do it for Trail because I feel like it's you can run like really it's very easy to run campaigns of Trail of Cthulhu. So I think Trail would be the one that would spring to mind first. Yeah, it would be really great to have something like that. And again, I think you can, there is enough mystery in a trail adventure and enough variation in them that they'd make very interesting organized play adventures.
Thank you very much
Um,
for the AMA Cat and everyone else for joining.
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone who joined in and endured me prattling on for nearly 2 hours.